Hello, everybody, and this is Moduli Stack. Welcome to Laddering Up, another of these shows that I'm doing about getting into those higher leagues. So this is another Bronze League replay right here. Pull up some production tab action. I'm going to be reviewing this for Paniclator, the blue Protoss at the top. He is going to be against a Terran player in the red on the right side. Now, the thing about I would say all the leagues lower than Platinum, Bronze, Silver, and Gold. If you were in Bronze, or you were in Silver, or you were in Gold, just work on your macro. That is it. Only work on your macro. Of course, this has been talked about a lot lately because of some of the stuff that Destiny did with Queens, which of course is being heavily misinterpreted. But in any case, the point has been around for a while and still stands. Macro is so important. Day9 has been talking about this since like the first day he did his show, and before, like back when he was doing podcasts. It was like, have more stuff than your opponent. Have more stuff. Make more than your opponent and win. Now, as you start to get into around the mid-diamond area, that's not going to be enough anymore. You're going to have to start really refining your strategy. But guess what? If you refine your strategy too early, when you're not that high up, you might stop focusing as much on your macro, and that is bad. That is really bad. I think that's especially one of the reasons people get stuck in Platinum. But anyway, we're not in Platinum here. We're in Bronze, and we're trying to get out of Bronze. So we're going to try to find absolutely everything that is causing Paniclator to not have enough stuff to kill his opponent. Okay, I'm actually going to ignore most of the strategy in the game because I kind of guarantee you that neither of these players are going to be making more than about 50% of the units they should be making, and I'll try to explain why I think that. Now, the reason I was pausing here is there's already been a mistake. Paniclator, we can see, at least for a split second, is going to miss his 9th probe here. You should never do that. It seems like maybe he's typing stuff. Okay, he did get it pretty fast. You'd really want to be totally on the ball with that stuff because it's so easy to be on the ball with it in the early game. There's nothing else going on. You can practice it a lot of times, nothing to distract you. And it's just a good moment to sort of just build up those reflexes, and don't let stuff like this slip. Pylon going down at the ramp. I do want to mention this because I did say macro is the most important thing, but more generally, you want to be thinking very clearly and critically about your play. It so happens that you should usually be thinking about macro, but in general, you just want to be critical of what you see in your own games. And so this is a little bit going to be about how to review your own replays. Now, this pylon at the ramp, why is this pylon at the ramp? Why is the pylon not back here? And give yourself a minute to think about reasons that you would put a pylon here instead of here. Well, it looks like Paniclator is planning on walling off. Now, I don't actually know whether his opponent was random or actually picked Terran. So if he was random, it could make sense to wall off here, right? He's Terran, though. So what are you worried about walling off against? Are you trying to deny Marines the high ground so you can shoot at them with stalkers from up here? Are you trying to avoid Hellion run-bys? It's just good to think about these things. I'm not saying that this is a good or a bad thing to have this pylon here, but you should think about the advantages and the disadvantages. One disadvantage is that it can, of course, be shot from the low ground. Now let's see, Paniclator moving out with a scout. Pretty normal time to scout after pylon. You should play a little with the scout timing. After gateway on a 1-player or 2-player map can be reasonable as well. But sorry, I said we were going to focus on macro, and we are going to focus on macro. Barracks going down. Now, okay, this is absolutely something that you never want to have happen. Look at what Paniclator is doing here. In fact, we will go to Paniclator's camera, and we see that he is... Oh, he's getting very excited. He's going to harass. He's going to harass. He's going to hurt the SCV. Oh, and he just remembered to go back and make a probe. By the way, gateway's late. So this is one of the reasons why it's so important to think about macro in the lower leagues, which is sometimes, I mean, if you look sort of the actions per minute here, well, okay, Panic Later is doing pretty all right on actions per minute, but they can be quite low, as you can see in this league. You don't always have the mechanics to do everything at once. And when you can't do everything at once, you're going to start doing the things which seem most important to you at the time. And so Panic Later was thinking, oh, it would be so nice to kill off this SCV. Well, it would be even nicer to keep making probes and start making your gateway on time, not 100 minerals late, on time. Make that gateway on time and then worry about harassing your opponent's SCVs, because you're distracting them. And the goal of this is not to kill their, right, you can't kill their SCV. He's going to stop you from killing the SCV. The goal is not to kill the SCV. The goal is to distract your opponent. But if you're distracting yourself too, it can really work against you. Okay, in the meantime, gas also going down late, right? Everything is just a little bit late, and the 15th probe here is being forgotten. Panic Later might be, again, paying attention to this scout, but again, it's not really important. If you're worried about the scout getting killed, there are two options basically. One is you can just shift right-click rally in a circle around your opponent's base. Especially when you're Protoss, the recharging shields means that you'll take almost 0 damage as you go around and around. That's one option. The other option is just leave with the probe. You already saw a huge amount. You saw that he's making a barracks in his base and that he's making a gas. And this immediately tells you that he is not going for 2 barracks fast marine pressure, and he is not going for a super fast expansion. It could mean a lot of other things. It's true, it could mean a lot of other things, but actually it's very hard to get more information than this. If you keep your probe around, it's going to be killed by a marine in a half minute anyway. So nothing wrong with just leaving, getting that extra mining time at home. Scouting is good, obviously. Scouting is great. Seeing what your opponent is doing is great, but not if you do it at the expense of what's going on in your base. What's going on in your base is fundamental. And now we're going to have to see if the second pylon is coming on time, and it is. That's a pretty good time for the second pylon. But look, still no probes. Still no probes. No probes. And in fact, Chrono Boost, a lot of extra Chrono Boost being wasted on a Nexus not doing anything. Probes not going to mine gas. This gas is not being mined. So let me be really clear. What I'm doing here is not very hard. I'm just pointing out every single flaw that I see. But there's this mentality that dominates. I've spoken with a lot of Platinum players even who have this mentality. The mentality is, oh, these mistakes aren't really that big of a deal. Well, no one of these mistakes is that big of a deal, but they just add up and they add up and they add up and they add up. Right now we see that Panic Later has 300 minerals, which is totally over the top for this moment. He's also, okay, he's starting to mine gas now, sends his probes one at a time. You might find it's a little faster to box 3 and send them. If you're having trouble with this, you might actually want to use hotkeys. For example, your 2 hotkey is not being used right now. So earlier, maybe when you start building the gas, select 3 probes, hotkey them to 2, and then when the gas finishes, 2 right-click on the gas to get them mining quickly. It, again, seems like nitpicking, seems like it's not important, but on the other hand, Panic Later actually was not able to put down his cybernetic score because he was focusing so much on getting his probes mining gas. And let's see when he remembers his cybernetic score. Only now, at 400 minerals. This cybernetic score should go down at 150 minerals. You're very late, Panic Later. So, again, you know, don't beat yourself up over it, but fix it. You know, I mean, I think I mentioned to Panic Later in a private message that build order tester is good, and I think I mentioned that in my last video as well. Play around with YABOT, yet another build order tester, but don't don't use their built-in builds. Oh my God, I'm shocked at the number of people who think that YABOT is best used as a tool for memorizing somebody else's build orders. A lot of the build orders in there aren't really good, and a lot of them are sort of weird or non-standard, and honestly, you don't learn that much from memorizing a build if that build isn't really good. You know, if you're talking about imitating something that a top player has done in dozens and dozens of games, that's one thing. But if it's just like, oh, here's how you get out 8 zealots really fast, or here's how you rush for blink stalkers or something, it's not that helpful. It's kind of helpful, but it's not nearly as helpful as taking your own ideas and trying to execute them better, because that's going to have a lot more relevance to your actual play. So yeah, do that in, I forget what mode it's called, but like freeform mode or whatever, and just play your normal build. Just do something normal. Imagine you're playing against somebody, you know, some race. Imagine you're playing against a Terran, and just run through your normal build. And if you make a mistake, restart. That's as simple as that. There's a key to restart, so it's pretty easy. Anyway, again, I'm going to ignore mostly what Panic Layer's opponent is doing. Panic Layer has gotten his money back down, but it's a little bit deceiving. He put down 3 things at once: his cybernetics core, his pylon, and his assimilator, and this all looks pretty good, except maybe this pylon is kind of too early. You don't hear that criticism much, that a pylon is too early. No probes being made. Probes. Never stop making probes. I don't care if you're building a gateway. I don't care if you're paying attention to your scout. Do not stop making probes, particularly this early. Every probe this early is really significant. And by the way, how do you know when you have enough probes? One thing I like to do is either double click or control click. And this is a little bit vague, but when you have both of your gases running and you control click, you should see a full screen of probes. That's how many you want on a base. Why? I mean, that's easy to remember, which is why I use it. I just go control click or box or something like that, and see how many I have. And it's like, if I'm missing 2, I'll like make another probe or 2. Yeah, I'm not going to explain why that's important. You can figure it out. But you want basically 24 probes plus the 2 that you can't see in the assimilators. That is a good number. Anything less than that is usually a bad number. Particularly this much less than that. Okay. Warp gate finishing, or cybernetics core finishing, warp gate starting. That is good. I don't have to tell you to value your warp gate. You clearly value your warp gate. And so the question is, where are we at this point in the game? We're not making probes. So, okay, probe being made. But those hiccups should not be happening. They're adding up to a lot. And I'll try to illustrate this. I'll actually do something similar to what I did in the last cast. So I'll try to demonstrate how much these little problems cost you. So, chrono boost going down. No probes being made. No probes. We're still 6 probes behind where we want to be, and no probes being made. Now a probe gets queued up. You have to be sort of more alert on these things. You do have your Nexus hotkeyed, and that is good. You might want your gateways hotkeyed as well, so you don't have to expend a lot of extra thought. Or you do have your gateways hotkeyed, excuse me. Okay, well, so that's good. Everything is hotkeyed, so you should be able to navigate around pretty quickly. You might also, if you're really finding you're spending too much time clicking back and forth, one thing you can do is screen hotkeys. By default, they're set to like F5 through F9 or something, but I remapped them to like F2 through F5. But the way they are by default, you basically would center on your main nexus and go Control F5, and then if you press F5 from anywhere, it will snap back to your nexus. And you can also do a similar hotkey on this screen on your ramp, which will improve the smoothness of your opening and let you focus more on this really, really important thing. Making probes is so important. By the way, how about this next pylon? Is he going to remember this next pylon? Okay, Reaper out, not going to do very much. Yeah, making a Reaper against Protoss has not been very good since they stopped letting you make a barracks before Supply Depot.